Yeah. It's your boy Ego, and here we go, back with another documentary, man. Hey, first off, I want to thank everybody who tuned in to my first documentary, The Story of Julio Fulio. I appreciate all the feedback, whether it was positive or negative. I take all of it. I really appreciate it, man, and I hope y'all enjoyed this one. Hey, y'all already know how it go, man. I don't like to do too much talking. I just like to get straight to the content. But first, y'all already know we gotta handle some business. I'ma need y'all to hit that subscribe button, that like button, and after the video, get in that comment section and let me know what y'all think. I truly appreciate it. I take all criticism, man. But hey, let's get straight to business, man. It's story time with your boy Ego. So sit back, relax, and tune in to the story of one of the most successful and controversial figures the entertainment industry has ever seen. People call him many things: the king of trolling, the bully, the boogeyman, the greatest. But I call him Mr. Unforgiving. And by the end of this story, you will see why. Because there is rarely a grudge that he is willing to let go, no matter how much time has went by. This is a story of a man that is truly one of a kind. Buckle up, get ready. We talking 50 Cent.
You know, I remember one time walking in the studio, Bleak Beans, everybody was in there, and I was like, man, I'm telling you, man, y'all got a chance right now, just flood it, put out a lot of music, because 50 Cent is coming.
Very unique individual, because here's a guy who starts beef and pretends that he is the bully and the roughest, toughest nigga on the face of the earth.
Everybody knew him from the street. You know, there's real cats, there's fake cats. He was a real cat.
Everybody that's ever gave him a helping hand or you know, was a part of it, he's found a way to backstab these people.
At the end of the day, niggas, we got banned. Who the niggas that got banned from Hot 97, nigga? We the reason why they call that shit Shot 97, nigga. We the reason. G-Unit.
50 introduced us to a new character, and that attitude and that swag and that danger and that solo, that wolf.
We want to put pressure on you. We know you can't pronounce those words in that Harry Potter book, so we're going to let you read Cat in the Hat.
Who saved him? People be like, God. Your first thing is, yo, God saved this guy. Maybe the devil, maybe Satan saved him. Because he's a great engine of chaos.
Nobody's never going to bully 50. You crazy? Not are you, is you crazy? Is you crazy?
Why you feel that?
How you gonna bully 50? He ain't no sucker. He ain't no chump. And he ain't one of the rappers that's trying to rap. Like, he actually lived everything.
You think he really like that?
I mean, my God, yeah.
Is the definition of fucking street hip hop. You know, if you're talking about hip hop and street, you should have fucking 50's picture on that shit.
I'm with 50 Cent. You think I could show emotions, nigga?
Before we get into all the controversy and messiness, I have to let it be known 50 is way bigger than just the negativity everyone likes to talk about. And there's more to who he is and how he grew up that molded him into the person we know today. 50 Cent, whose real name is Curtis Jackson, was born in July of 1975 and is from a neighborhood in Queens, New York known as South Jamaica. He was raised by his mother up until the age of 8 years old before she would be murdered. 50 has said in interviews how his mother had to go out and hustle and sell drugs to help provide for him as his father was absent in his life. This would allegedly play a role in how she was murdered, as the area was known as a hot spot for drug dealing around this time. The loss of his mother would result in 50 going to live with his grandparents, and it would only be a few years later when he would also begin to get involved with drug dealing at the age of 12.
You know, cause my mom, she got killed when I was 8 years old. I had to live with them full time, and I went and stayed with them, and it was like, we was living on my grandfather's income. So he was real old fashioned. He's representation of tradition for me.
It wouldn't take long for 50 to make a name for himself in the streets. One of his closest friends till this day, Tony Yayo, would mention in an interview that by the time he would get into the streets, 50 was already active and becoming known as a legend in his hood, saying he ran the block.
I mean, everybody around my way sold drugs. Like, you know, you had 50
which we call him Boo Boo, like he jumped off the porch, I would say at 12 years old. So I was 3 years behind. He was always ahead because he was 12 years old. And I remember like going to the block and seeing him with the high riser ring, little nigga, the rhinestone jacket, you know, niggas getting money to cars on the boulevard. So that's what always impressed me.
Yayo and 50 would tell the story of how 50 once got into a wild police chase on a motorcycle because the police thought he was involved in a double murder because the motorcycle he had matched the description of the same one that was on the scene. 50 would somehow escape from the police even though they had helicopters and all out looking for him.
In Bricktown, and 50 had the same bike as him, was 1100 Yamaha. And it was the illest police chase ever Queens ever seen. Like he's coming out, got Brewer, Old Dan. Like they got helicopters, they got dogs, rest in peace, my man Fat Shot. They got dogs running through his backyard and we hustle.
50 also got into boxing at a young age and later said he looked at it being very similar to rapping because of how competitive both professions are. Throughout him growing up, he would be caught multiple times with drugs, once while at school, which he described as being embarrassing because he got caught going through metal detectors, as he wasn't only bringing drugs, but also carrying guns to school. There was also a time when he would be arrested twice within weeks apart, with one of those arrests being him selling drugs to an undercover police officer. Before he would be known by the name we all know him as today, he went by the nickname Boo Boo. He would later start calling himself 50 Cent, which he got from being inspired by a notorious robber from Brooklyn named Kelvin Martin. He chose this name because he says him and Martin had something in common, which was they would provide for themselves by any means necessary. Kelvin Martin, aka the original 50 Cent, would be killed in 1987. Underneath the drug dealing, 50 had a passion for music, and after being torn between selling drugs and recording music, the birth of his first son would influence 50 to step away from the drug game and fully pursue a career in music. In the mid to late 90s, 50 would be introduced to Jam Master Jay, a member of the legendary hip-hop group Run DMC. He would be a mentor to 50, teaching him the basics and mechanics of making records and would even put him on a song with another legendary rap group, Onyx. The boost that JMJ would give 50 would help him land his first major record deal with Columbia Records in 1999. This is also when he would release his controversial debut single, How to Rob. Now as we go through this story, you will see how this song basically was like a warning shot to the rest of the industry, letting them know right from the start who they were dealing with if they got on his bad side. Because How to Rob would catch the attention of nearly everybody who was somebody in the industry, as 50 would rap about robbing several big name artists like Jay-Z, P Diddy, Mariah Carey, who was also his label mate at the time, Bobby Brown, and many more. The song would receive several responses from the people who were mentioned on the song, including the Wu-Tang Clan, Wyclef Jean, and Jay-Z, who would diss 50 on stage during the show.
I'm about dollars, who the fuck is 50 Cent?
The song would turn out to perhaps be one of the first examples of the saying, any publicity is better than no publicity, because it would later be included on the hit movie In Too Deep, which starred famous actors Omar Epps and LL Cool J, who had also already made a name for himself in hip-hop. Nas, who was also already a big name in the industry, would invite 50 on his tour after the release of the song, but it's worth noting that Nas was also in the middle of a back and forth with Jay-Z in what would be later recognized as one of the most legendary beasts of all time, because of the hit songs that would be put out between two of the greatest to ever step in the booth. So we really don't know the true motive on Nas making this move, but either way, it was a big move for 50 in his career. With all the attention this brought, it was set to be the lead single for 50's debut album, Power of the Dollar. Right as it looked like 50 was about to kick the doors down into the industry, his career and life would take a tragic hit when he would be the victim of a shooting in May of 2000 that would take place right outside of his grandmother's house, when allegedly a car would approach and shots would be fired, which resulted in 50 being shot 9 times in multiple parts of his body, including his face.
Walked over here to sit in the actual vehicle that my friend was waiting for me in, and the car pulled up. On the side of us, a guy got out the passenger seat of that car, came around behind it, and shot through the actual car.
In what could only be described as a miracle, 50 would survive the shooting, but as I mentioned, his career and life would take a huge blow as this resulted in his album getting canceled, but still making his way to the public by being bootlegged, aka leaked in today's terms, and him also being dropped by the label. It would surprisingly only take him 5 months to fully recover after spending time on a walker and having a hard time speaking clearly because of the shot to his face, which caused him to have a swollen tongue. This would end up being a minor setback for a major, and I mean major in all caps, major comeback. 50 would get back to making music after only 2 years from being shot and nearly losing his life. He started releasing mixtapes to help build his name up, and it would pay off in a big way in the year of 2002 when he would drop a mixtape called Guess Who's Back that would catch the ears of buzzing and eventual legendary rapper Eminem. M was signed to another iconic figure in the industry, Dr. Dre, and would introduce him to 50, which would lead to 50 being signed to Eminem's label, which was under major record label Interscope Records. This would be the breakthrough 50 needed, and he took full advantage of it, releasing his highly anticipated debut album the following year in 2003, Get Rich or Die Trying. The album would definitely live up to the hype as it debuted at #1 on the Billboard charts, selling over 800,000 copies in the first week. The classic single In the Club would be included on the album, breaking a Billboard record for the most played song in a week in history. The album would give 50 multiple chart-topping singles, and later that same year, he would sign Lloyd Banks, Tony Yayo, and Young Buck to his own label under Interscope called G-Unit Records. They would shortly after release their debut album as a group called Beg for Mercy, which debuted at #2 on the charts. He would later add someone who would end up being the most successful artist from the group besides 50 himself, and would also end up turning into a foe, which we will touch on later in the story. But of course, I'm talking about an artist out of Compton, California known as The Game. G-Unit would add other artists over time, but these were the most notable members of the group. Banks, Yayo, Buck, and Game would all release successful solo albums while with G-Unit, all debuting in the top 5 on the Billboard charts. The rise and fall of G-Unit would be heavily publicized, as today the only member who still maintains a close relationship with 50 is Tony Yayo. The career of 50 Cent would only continue to go up from here as he continued to drop hit after hit with his second album, The Massacre, which would also debut at #1 and sell over 1 million copies in the first week. This album featured top 10 Billboard hits like Candy Shop, Disco Inferno, Just a Little Bit, and Out of Control. A couple years later, he would release his third album named Curtis, which sold over 600,000 copies in its first week and debuted at #2 on the charts. It featured hits like I Get Money and Ayo Technology, which was yet another top 10 charting single for 50. He would follow that up with his 4th straight top 5 charting album, Before I Self-Destruct, which debuted at #5 on the Billboard charts. This would be his last album released on the Interscope Records, and it would be 5 years before he released his 5th straight top 5 album, Animal Ambition, which debuted at #4. As you can see, 50 had lots of success during his music career, racking up countless awards, including a Grammy in 2010. He is recognized as one of the top 50 greatest rappers of all time, being ranked at 17th by Billboard in 2023. 50 also has had success in the film industry, starting his own company, G-Unit Films. His first appearance on the screen came in 2005 on his own biopic, a movie about his life called Get Rich or Die Trying, which depicted a lot of what we've talked about, including the shooting and his recovery. He has since been featured in many different movies and TV shows, and today is mostly known for the widely popular TV series Power, which he executive produced and plays a main character in the series. 50 is undoubtedly one of the most successful celebrities we've seen, with the versatility to go from history-making success in music to success in film still to this day. Through all this success, 50 has built a reputation for himself with the many feuds he would have throughout his career, and as I won't cover all of them, I will be touching on the more infamous and known beefs that would play a vital role in his career, with a few still going on till this day, which is why I have given him the name Mr. Unforgiving. 50 would have plenty of back and forth throughout his career, which if we're being honest was probably expected based on the way he introduced himself to the industry with the single How to Rob. Nobody is off limits when it comes to 50. That goes for rappers, media personalities, label CEOs, actors. I mean, the guy even had words for Oprah. This is Oprah we're talking about. But the first and most violent beef in his career would be the one that would go down in history as one of the most serious and dangerous rap beefs ever. This is the infamous beef between 50 and Ja Rule. Ja Rule was also raised up in Queens, New York. He would begin making music in the early 90s and would soon sign his first major deal with Murder Inc., led by legendary producer Irv Gotti, which was under Def Jam Records. Ja and Irv already had a close relationship prior to this, as Irv produced some of his music early on when he was in a group called Cash Money Click. Ja would go on to have a successful career in music, as he would be one of the first artists to mix gangster rap with R&B and pop, putting him in superstar status. He would have several Billboard charting hits and multiple #1 albums, and would also have success in the film industry, appearing in several hit movies. As you can see, there was a lot that 50 and Ja had in common, both coming up around the same times, being from the same area of New York, but the two would eventually clash. What started the beef between the two is still not clear, as 50 claims it allegedly started from a situation in 1999 when Ja was robbed by an associate of 50 and assumed that 50 had something to do with it. Ja, however, claims it started simply out of jealousy and that 50 didn't like how much love he was getting during a video shoot he had in Queens.
You feel what I'm saying? But it had nothing to do with him. Like, I didn't even know you know this dude. You know what I'm saying? His story is, I seen him with Troy out and about and I got mad at him. Like, nigga, you had nothing to do with it. Why would I get mad at the guy next to the guy?
Things would heat up after 50 released a song called Lights on the Line, where he took shots at Ja and Murder Inc., repeatedly saying their signature chant, "It's murder," to let it be known who the song was directed at. Not long after the song, things would get violent in the year of 2000 when 50 and Ja, along with their camps, would bump heads in Atlanta, Georgia, where both of them were booked to perform. An altercation would take place, which turned into a brawl in which somehow 50 and his side would end up with Ja's pendant from his chain.
Our situation, so yeah, they had a little fight in Atlanta. We got to Atlanta, nigga wanted to talk. Rule ain't really want to talk to him. Before we got there, Rule said, I don't want to talk to him, but somehow somebody, I think Chaz was there, you know what I mean? And niggas got a lot of respect for him. And so off that note, John had a conversation with him and it escalated to a fight. We ended up chasing him through the hotel lobby. It was crazy.
And then it popped. When I ran outside, Ja Rule, I was black already. His shit was like this. 50 caught him already. His shit was like this already, nigga. Like this, right here. You see? Look, camera got it. You got it, Kim? You got my man from overseas? That shit was like this. 50 a boxer caught Ja Rule already. And then I guess the chain pop, he snuffed him and, Southside nigga. And had the chain.
To the side, pull him, away from the guys to talk to him. Jock walked over there with the bat in his hand. And, 50, as they talking, how people sometimes talk and they gesture with their hands or whatever, he may have gestured with the bat as he's talking. And, I think, he raised his voice or something. And then 50 swung on him.
Yeah. And then all hell broke loose.
Yeah, kind of like, it just got crazy. And
50 and his crew would brag about having a pendant, and it wouldn't be long before the two groups bumped heads again, this time in New York at a recording studio. This resulted in another brawl, with this one being more serious because 50 would end up being stabbed, or in his words, grazed, during the fight.
But they had like bitch niggas, they had like kitchen utensils, they had like motherfucking crutches and shit.
50 got stabbed that day, right? He didn't get stabbed,
Vlad,
right?
shut the fuck up with that shit.
Okay. He got
the
cut?
motherfucker had a scratch.
He got cut a little.
You want to see what I got? You look on my finger right here. If you look on my finger, I got cut right there. Just look bad because it was sliced and meat was hanging. No homo.
That was from that night?
So look, yeah, that was from that night.
Ja and fellow Murder Inc. rapper Black Child would be arrested for the incident, in which Black would end up taking all the credit, saying he acted in self-defense because he thought he saw someone with a gun. A few months later is when 50 would be shot 9 times. The timing of this definitely raises eyebrows, but still to this day, there has been no solid evidence that Ja and Murder Inc. was connected to this shooting. However, an investigation revealed that allegedly a drug kingpin by the name of Kenneth Supreme McGriff, who was associated with Murder Inc., allegedly was involved in a plot with unnamed Murder Inc. members to kill 50.
Yeah. He tried to let a bro fifth and go for that. Fifth little bro them back. That's a fact. Yeah, so from there, I guess pretty much there, this boy gonna be a problem.
But obviously 50 is a target. He knows he's a target. If you look at the two-way pager records that we found, historical records, you'll see people, unknown people, saying 50's on Guy Brewer and 155th or wherever. So they were out looking for him.
The investigation would allege that Supreme's motive was because 50 had made a song talking about his criminal activities in the streets, which Supreme felt like was incriminating and drawing attention from the police. But like I said, all of this is allegedly, as the investigation went nowhere and nobody was ever arrested and charged for the shooting. 50 even mentioned in the song Many Men that the guy behind the shooting was killed weeks after trying to kill him, but nothing has surfaced to prove this to be true. Supreme would end up being arrested years later on murder for hire and drug trafficking charges and sentenced to life in prison. After the 50 shooting, things would go quiet for a while between him and Ja Rule until 2002, when 50 released the single Wankster, seemingly aimed at Ja. Later that same year, Irv would accuse 50 of filing an order of protection against him and Ja, which would paint 50 as a snitch in the streets.
Is an order of protection. An order of protection for Irving Lorenzo to stay away from Curtis Jackson. That's 50, y'all. AKA 50, AKA 50, AKA Informant, AKA I'm Telling. Wow. You understand? So I just want everyone to get clear. Allah, that little incident we had at the Hit Factory, you know, he tells you about it. A little stabbing with the butter knife. Yeah. It was a little altercation.
It would later be confirmed that the order did exist, but it was filed by the NYPD, not 50 himself.
50 Cent never cooperated with anybody, and I would know if he did. I had the whole music industry investigation business locked down. I knew everybody who was talking to everybody. There was no way he cooperated.
The next incident would happen in January of 2003, when the office of a management company that was tied to 50 would be shot up and Murder Inc. would be accused of being responsible. No one at the office was hit and no evidence was ever found that linked Murder Inc. to the shooting. As time went by, the two would trade jabs at each other through diss songs and interviews, and looking at the numbers and how Ja's career started to decline throughout the beef, it would be clear that 50 won the battle on the music side, with a lot of people even saying 50 ended Ja's career. Ja himself even admitted in an interview that he took the L in the battle.
As we were big over on our side, they were also big on our side, on their side. And as everything started to crumble for us, as far as we didn't have a label as a home anymore, you understand? There was a lot of things that were falling apart for us. It was easy for him to get people to turn on.
Bulldoze.
Right. And there was things that were behind the scenes that y'all don't see that also made us seem more irrelevant. You know, like, we couldn't go to award shows.
Yeah.
They would make calls like, well,
got 50 and we can't be in that 'cause
if Murder Inc. is in the building, they're not going to perform this year. M's not going to perform. So we would get calls from MTV. Much love, shout out to MTV. Or we get calls from BET, shout out to BET. That, yo, we love you guys, but guys, they're doing their thing this year and we don't want y'all in the building.
But if you look at it from the streets point of view, many might give that part to Ja and Murder Inc., considering the multiple incidents to happen on 50's side during the beef. Ja and Irv would later elaborate on this in interviews on how 50 was the one that was the victim anytime incidents outside of music happened.
At the end of the day, I've never been beat up. I've never been stabbed up. I've never been shot up. You know what I'm saying? These are all the things that happened to him.
But he's the one that got shit done to him.
In 2013, Ja seemed to officially put an end to the beef when he posted on social media that him and 50 had seen each other in person for the first time in years by being on the same flight and same row with no words being exchanged between the two.
Here's the you want the true story?
True story.
I'm on the plane. He comes on the plane. I'm on my phone doing something. So I see like a big dude coming on the plane and shit. So I look up to see who the big dude is, big black dude. And I'm like, okay, looks like some type of security dude, you know what I'm saying? So I'm looking now to see who's with the security dude. It's him. You know what I'm saying? So he sees me, I see him. He looks at me, he's like, yo, what up? I'm like, all right, what up? Go back to doing what I'm doing. He goes and sits down in his seat. I'm in my seat. No more words were said, no more nothing, no more anything.
He would also follow that up with a post addressing people who want to see them harm each other, saying, "We off that." Well, 50 would make it clear the following year that they were not on the same page with letting things go by dissing Ja and Murder Inc. on stage at Summer Jam, performing one of those diss songs that was a part of the beef. This would be followed up with years of continuous trolling by 50 every chance he got, and Ja responding every time. It's clear that Ja just wanted to put the whole thing behind him and move on, but 50 being 50 still to this day continues taking jabs at him and Irv no matter how much time has went by. His latest jab, being perhaps the most disrespectful thing in this entire beef, would come recently when Irv Gotti would pass away due to medical reasons, leaving family members, the industry, and Ja Rule himself devastated. But even death wouldn't stop 50 from taking one last jab at the legendary producer by posting on social media a picture of himself seated next to a tombstone with RIP on it, blowing smoke out of a hookah and captioning it, "Smoking on that Gotti pack. Nah, God bless, LOL." Just when you thought he couldn't hit any lower, he went lower than he's ever went in his career. He would be faced with backlash, but also some that justifies the post, considering everything that happened between the beef over the years. Me personally, I don't ever condone speaking on the dead. Even though this would be his most infamous beef that, as you can see, has lasted over 2 decades, he would still have time to be involved in several other feuds. The next long-lasting beef we're going to touch on has also lasted nearly 2 decades, and this is the beef with P Diddy. Despite what he's currently dealing with, which is being held in jail awaiting trial on sex trafficking and racketeering charges, Diddy is known as a legend not only in hip-hop but the music industry as a whole. It is unknown what initially caused the beef, but the first shot would be taken in 2006 by, of course, 50 himself in a song called "The Bomb," where he accuses Diddy of knowing who killed Biggie Smalls, a legendary artist who made a huge impact in such a short time, who was brought in the industry and signed to Diddy in the 90s. Biggie was an inspiration to many artists, including 50 himself. He would be killed in 1997 and his murder is still unsolved. But there have been several different theories surrounding his death, with some even involving Diddy. So of course this wouldn't just fly over everyone's head. It is speculated that 50 going at Diddy stems from a conflict in which 50 was trying to buy out and sign the rapper Mace to his G-Unit label, but Diddy was playing hardball, which caused the deal to never go through. Seems like a minor reason to go on to accuse someone of having knowledge of the murder of their artist and friend. But this is 50 we're talking about. It doesn't take much for him to take it there. Even after this, it seems Diddy wasn't too upset about it, because a year later he would collaborate with 50 on the remix to I Get Money along with Jay-Z. The next few years they would have some awkward but casual interactions, with 50 jokingly interrupting a Diddy interview at one point, but it all seemed harmless. The beef wouldn't heat up until 2014, when once again 50 takes a jab at Diddy after Diddy would release his single Big Homie featuring French Montana and Rick Ross. 50 would go on an interview and call this single garbage and saying Puff aka Diddy ain't got no music you wanna hear. This would seem to be the second time 50 just randomly decided to come at Diddy, but many believe it was because Diddy had Ross on the song, who 50 had already started having a separate beef with. Later that same month, 50 does an interview with Flex and calls Diddy a sucker on how he handled the Mace situation, which confirms that he has perhaps felt some type of way ever since the situation.
Like about him.
Nah, ever since Mace, you've always had a bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah, he did some suckers.
You always had a bad taste in your mouth.
He was a sucker on the Mace project because he know what he did.
No, but
this beef was so petty that at one point it was even an issue over two different kinds of vodka that each were representing. Diddy had Ciroc and 50 had effing vodka, and 50 would go on an interview and criticize Ciroc, saying it's not even really vodka, it's just made by vodka, and him assuming that Diddy had French Montana post a video of him throwing away bottles of effing vodka. The pettiness would continue after the murder rap documentary would come out alleging that Diddy had Tupac killed. 50 took this as an opportunity to go at Diddy once again by posting on social media saying, "No more Diddy juice, he killed Tupac, LOL." 50 would continue the trolling in 2017 when he began questioning Diddy's sexuality with a post of an image of him surrounded by a bunch of teddy bears and saying, "You are all left under the leadership of Puff Daddy. Report to the nearest rainbow." He continued when he went on the Breakfast Club for an interview when he recalls a conversation him and Diddy had once before when he says Diddy told him he would take him shopping, causing him to walk away saying, "Let me move before I do something."
Puff, okay. He telling me we got a kick in this shit. And he was like, "Yo, why don't we like go shopping or some shit?" I mean, like I pay for it. And I was like, "What the fuck this nigga just said?" I got the fuck away from him because I was like, this nigga.
As you can see, through all the trolling that 50 was doing, Diddy wasn't really entertaining it and just kinda ignoring it. He would finally address it during his own interview on the Breakfast Club, but not in a way that you would think, as he would deny having any problems with 50 and even being a little sarcastic in my opinion by saying 50 loves me.
why are you and 50?
Hey yo,
why y'all not?
Hey yo, I don't have no beef with
I don't know why.
With Fifth. He loves me. He loves me.
Do y'all really
can't
have
see
a
it?
beef?
I mean, y'all can't see it.
When you look at the history of any differences Diddy has had with people, even during the infamous beef with Suge Knight and Death Row, he has always kind of tried to take the more mature approach and de-escalate the situation. At least that's how it would look from the outside looking in. But later that year, Diddy would take a devastating loss when his ex that he had a very public on and off relationship with would pass away, and 50 would actually send his condolences to Diddy, saying the love he had for her was real and telling him to keep his head up, even saying positive vibes only. This would be followed up by multiple occasions where 50 would side with Diddy on certain situations Diddy was involved in. Things were seeming to turn positive between the two until May of 2023, when 50 would be on tour, and while speaking, he would once again accuse Diddy of having Tupac killed. This would come recently after a guy named Keefe D would be arrested and is currently facing charges on the murder, in which he claims that Diddy put a hit out on Tupac with him and his crew. If you want to know about the whole Keefe D and Diddy alleged involvement in Pac's murder, Keefe did an interview with Vlad TV where he speaks on the whole situation. It's a great interview and you should check it out if you're interested. This, however, could have been a response to an image that was posted by Diddy a year before this of the mother of 50's second son cutting a cake for his birthday. This could easily be taken as a petty move by Diddy, but it's worth noting that they had been seen in public together several times before this, but it's unclear if they were in some kind of relationship or just a close friendship. But either way, she has a son with 50, and we all know that anything can set 50 off. And he would respond by posting an image with him and their son staring at the camera with the caption, "That's your mommy over there with Puffy, LOL. Remember what I told you the other day, these itches be crazy," which is wild with the son being in the picture and talking about his mother. This is around the time when the allegations against Diddy would start, and 50 would take full advantage of it by continuously trolling about the situation, while Diddy is going through the scariest and most difficult time in his life.
But I just got a call and Puffy's confirmed for Shreveport. It's lit! Nah. That nigga can't come. He fuck around. Everybody be scared to drink. Come in cups. Fucking wake up, your butt sore.
He even made a docu-series of alleged victims of Diddy that he sold to Netflix. Diddy is currently awaiting trial, and I'm almost certain 50 will be all eyes and ears on how it turns out and be ready to troll if Diddy is found guilty. Remember, this all started back in 2006, and as you can see, 50 has no intention on letting things go. As you can see by now, it doesn't matter who you are or the relationship he has with you. If you do anything that 50 doesn't like, he will not only cut you off, but add you to the list of people he doesn't get along with. As mentioned earlier, 50 formed a group named after his label called G Unit. Two of the guys were from his neighborhood, which is Tony Yayo and Lloyd Banks. They would later add a rapper from Tennessee named Young Buck and another from California named The Game. The group would have success early on and deliver a number of hit songs together, but as the years went on, the group would fall apart little by little, and today the only person from the group that is still right by 50's side is Tony Yayo. Each of the other members would have falling outs with 50 for different reasons, but the most serious one that would turn into a full-on beef was with The Game. Game was discovered by Dr. Dre and signed to his Aftermath record label in the early 2000s. He would go on to have a very successful career with several Billboard charting hit singles and albums, most notably his debut album, The Documentary, and Game has since been solidified as a West Coast legend. After being signed by Dre, he would be put with G Unit to help boost his career and the success of the group. Things started off great between 50 and Game, as he made appearances in some of 50's music videos, and the two would collab together on multiple songs, including the Grammy-nominated track Hate It or Love It, which would go #1 on the charts and be nominated for multiple awards, including 2 Grammys for Rap Song of the Year and Best Rap Performance by a Group. Everything started to take a turn when it was rumored that 50's second album would be pushed back to help market Game's debut album. After the release of his highly successful debut album, Game would do an interview with Hot 97 Radio and say he wouldn't get involved in any of 50's beefs in the industry because some of the guys 50 was beefing with at the time were artists that Game said he looked up to and had a big influence on him wanting to rap. So he couldn't find it in himself to dislike these guys. 50 would respond shortly after by also doing an interview on Hot 97 Radio and saying Game is no longer a part of G Unit, literally kicking him out of the group live on air. During this same interview, Game and a group of guys would pull up to the radio station, leading to an altercation outside of the building between them and G-Unit security that resulted in shots being fired, with one person being hit but was only injured.
You guys go to Hot 97 to talk to 50 over what he just said.
Yeah, we had like 20 yellow cabs.
Okay. What happens next?
What happens next is they wouldn't let us in the building. It was locked. And there was security. And at that time, 50 was traveling with like ex-Marines and shit like that. You know, we just had the homies. And so we went up there, they wouldn't let us in. And so we got into, you know, some shit with the with his entourage and his, you know, his security, and shots were fired.
This would lead to 50 putting out a music video to his song Piggy Bank, where it featured an animated version of the game depicted as Mr. Potato Head. This would happen after which I assumed the label encouraged both of them to state publicly that they would put their differences to the side, but obviously 50 had other plans. The game would respond by releasing 300 bars and running, which was filled with bars directed at 50, like the line, "You sell records, but a G you not. Acting big on the radio, to me you not. You can ask Mr. C who hot. Tony Yayo, I bet 10 G's you flop. Run up on that new 300C you got." This would also be when Game would take a page from 50 by trolling with a campaign called G You Not. The two would take jabs at each other over the next couple of years through disses, and 50 would use a mixtape cover to start the rumors that Game was once a male stripper before becoming a gangster rapper. A move that still to this day anyone that has issues with Game will bring up. The beef would seem to cool down, with at one point Game speaking on possibly putting the issues to bed and officially ending the beef. But of course 50 wouldn't be on the same page with this, and in 2009 he would diss the Game again on a song called So Disrespectful, in which he would say, "Come on Game, you will never be my equal. Your homies shoot doors, my ninjas shoot people." The following year, Game would once again try to squash the beef through social media by what seems to be him trying to reunite G-Unit, because by now 50 had also dropped Young Buck and Lloyd Banks from the group, also for different reasons. 50 would once again turn down the idea. There was even a point in between the beef where 50 had cut ties with all of the members of G-Unit. Yes, even the super loyal Tony Yayo. Then in 2014, 50 would shock the industry during his Summer Jam performance when he would surprise the crowd by bringing out the 3 other original members of G-Unit, Yayo, Banks, and even Buck, which was really surprising considering how disrespectful their beef had been. This would also be another shot at Game, as he had tried multiple times to reconcile with 50, but was the only one to not be a part of this reunion. This wouldn't last long, as 50 would once again end up falling out with Banks and Buck, because in 2016, Banks would reunite with Game, as the two would be seen on a picture together posted on social media. With 50 still at odds with Game, he would once again cut off Banks and would even repost the picture with a petty response. 50 and Buck would later start beefing again as well in 2019, with 50 exposing Buck for having relations with a transgender. Back in 2016 though, after the picture situation, 50 and Game would temporarily squash their long-term beef during an event that was hosted by 50, when Game would get on stage telling the crowd he has no problem with 50 and all the beefing back and forth was over with. They would also be seen in the VIP section of the club together that same night.
And he gave a head nod. Me and Game went over there, and I stood behind 50, and Monster stood behind Game. And they talked, man, for like 10, 12 minutes, laughing, joking. It was cool.
Things would go quiet between the two since that night until years later in 2022, when Dr. Dre put together an all-star group of performers for the Super Bowl that was held in California that year. This would be a celebration of Dre's legacy, as he brought out some big artists that came up with him and were signed to his label, that included Snoop Dogg, Eminem, Mary J. Blige, Kendrick Lamar, and the one and only 50 Cent. This would come as a shock to many people around the world and music industry that left many confused on why the game was left out. He was discovered by Dre, he signed with Dre, and most importantly, he was born and raised in California. But just like he did when Game and 50's beef started years ago, he chose 50 over Game. This would cause a rant by Game on social media and interviews, which he would call out multiple people who were a part of the show, including Eminem, who, as mentioned earlier, was the one to bring 50 to Dr. Dre and sign him.
M is an icon, but M is not from LA. I have one problem with the Super Bowl. Eminem stepped on the Compton courthouse and it broke.
Jay-Z, right? He said to me, the white guy called for 50 Cent. Who's the white guy? He said Eminem called directly for 50.
50 is not from LA, and I'm not taking away from the fact that they were on the Super Bowl. It's a Dr. Dre Super Bowl, but it is Jay-Z. LA, all around the Super Bowl, and I don't get the call.
This would draw a response by 50, who would troll Game on social media after winning an Emmy along with the other artists for the performance at the Super Bowl, and posted a now deleted photo of Game with the caption, "No caption needed." Game would respond in a similar way, posting a photo of 50 with the same caption but with a little extra on it. 50 would then post a meme of himself with the caption, "Oh no, you don't get one," with a trophy emoji, and trolling Game's latest album release, which sold a very low 18K copies in its first week, which is definitely a major flop considering the success of his past albums. The Game has since spoke about the exchange in an interview with Vlad TV, saying there's no bad blood with 50, but he would rather 50 do his thing and he do his thing. When Vlad brought up the idea of a reunion of the two on stage, he pretty much shut that down, saying at this point in his life, he has no desire to ever share a stage or anything with 50 Cent.
Is just chilling, man, and I don't have any desires to be on a stage with 50 or on a stage with anybody.
This is yet another beef that started well over a decade ago, and even though it was squashed for a few years, the two eventually had words once again, and now it's at a point where I think it's safe to say these two won't ever be in a place where they could actually call each other friends again. But you never know what can happen. I will say it would be lit to see these two actually do a performance together, even if it's just for the culture and fans. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I wouldn't go through every single beef 50 has had because that would take a huge amount of time, and I ain't trying to put together a 3-hour documentary. I'll leave that to Trap Lil Ross. By the way, shout out to Trap Lil Ross. But the last beef we will go through is one that has also lasted for over a decade and is still ongoing today, and has even wrapped in a streets legend that recently got released after serving 20 plus years in prison. This is the troll-filled beef between 50 and Rick Ross. Ross is another highly successful artist who's had multiple #1 albums and singles and has also received Grammy nominations. He's also a successful businessman, entrepreneur, and label owner of the MMG record label that produced successful artists like Meek Mill, Wale, and Omarion during his solo career. It seems the tension between 50 and Ross would start when 50 would actually congratulate Ross on his debut album going #1, but would also use this as a warning shot by telling him not to get too close to Fat Joe, who 50 was beefing with at the time. And as we know by now, 50 feels like a friend of his enemy quickly turns into an enemy as well. A few months later, Ross says he would see 50 at the BET Awards and he didn't like the way 50 looked at him. But 50 claims he doesn't recall this, as he doesn't even remember Ross being at the event. Not long after this, in 2009, which would be a year full of back and forth between the two, Ross would put the beef on wax by releasing Mafia Music, a song that was a direct diss at 50 and even got personal in the song, mentioning an incident involving the mother of 50's first son. This would clearly make the beef official, and 50 would respond in multiple ways by first trolling Ross about his past being a correctional officer with the song titled Officer Ricky, and afterwards doing an interview with Ross's ex and mother of his son, Tia Kemp, in which she would double down on the trolling of him once being a correctional officer and completely goes in on him being a fraud. 50 would also take Tia on a shopping spree, as rumors would go around that they were perhaps dating, but I personally feel this was all a play to get under Ross's skin and humiliate him. 50 would even start a cartoon series named Officer Ricky. Through the years, other members of G Unit would get involved, putting out their own disses toward Ross, and Ross would make a remix to Mafia music and feature 3 other enemies of 50 on the song, which was Ja Rule, The Game, and Fat Joe. Things would get more personal when DJ Khaled, who has always been a very close friend of Ross, would get drugged in the beef when 50 released some creepy footage of Khaled's mother's house and her sleeping with signs that 50 was having her watched or stalked.
I know where your mama house at. Now look, you can see. But I just want to tell you what the psychic told me. I know where your mama work at. Now look at her, sleep.
50 would also release a sex tape of another ex that Ross shares a child with, which would lead to a lawsuit against 50 by the ex that she would win. Ross would also take the disrespect to a personal level with at one point photoshopping an image by putting 50's son's face on a monkey's body. He also would release a music video that depicted a mock funeral for 50. As you can see, nothing was off limits when it came to these two. They would continue to go back and forth until 2011 when Ross would suffer 2 seizures in October of that year. 50 would be asked if he had any words for Ross, which I feel was petty to even ask him that in the heat of their ongoing beef. But surprisingly, 50 would have a positive response, saying he gotta take care of himself and that he doesn't wish death on anyone. He even related the situation to his grandfather, saying he had a seizure before, so perhaps he understood the pain Ross was going through. Ross would respond to this a month later, saying if it was genuine what 50 said, then he appreciates it and thanked him. As things seemed like it was at a point at which the beef was slowly going away, the following year at the BET Awards, an artist signed to Ross's label named Gunplay, who Ross also has a close relationship with, would get into a physical altercation with members of G Unit backstage. This would result in allegedly Gunplay's chain being took, which 50 would later show off in his music video that features Young Jeezy, another artist that was having issues with Ross at the time.
The steps are so small, right, that Gunplay times itself walking, because there's so many of us, only 2 people could walk like this at the same time. So he makes it to where as though he kind of meets Fifth. I don't know if he thought he was going to swing on him. I don't know if he thought he was, whatever he thought he was about to do. And the homie looked at him and said to him, you know you're not supposed to be here right now. And then he got punched in the mouth.
This would spark the beef back up, and the two would continue taking personal shots at each other for years through social media, music, interviews, and even lawsuits. No matter how much time went by, both would take every opportunity to troll the other when anything happened involving their rival. The most recent exchange started after Ross decided to include himself into the biggest beef in rap right now, and easily one that would go down in history between Drake and Kendrick Lamar. Ross would put out his own diss against Drake after Drake dissed him on a song for seemingly choosing sides early in the beef by unfollowing Drake and posting a video of him dancing to the song Like That, which was the song that kicked off the back and forth between Drake and Kendrick. Ross would later go to Canada, where Drake is from, to do a show and attempted to play Kendrick's mega diss against Drake, Not Like Us, during his set, and a brawl would break out involving Ross and his security. This would draw a response from guess who, 50 Cent. 50 would make several posts trolling Ross, with one saying, "My guess is you won't be going back to Canada." Not long after this, 50 would go and do his own show in Canada and even play the video of the brawl in the background.
You know, that I hope that brother made it home safely. I hope that he now has a different perspective and a better sense of what to do and what not to do while you're out in the world, you know? That part where the young guy went like, he did this little move and shit and got knocked out like right there. That does not reflect him. That reflects his camp. And he might need to go get the Dream Chasers or the 305 Killers.
Ross would make a video questioning 50's loyalty to Dre and Kendrick because remember, Dre brought 50 out at the halftime show along with Kendrick Lamar.
And I thought Dr. Dre put you on. I thought Dr. Dre was the set. I thought you was loyal.
Then recently, Ross would post a video with the legendary street legend Big Meech, who recently was released from prison to promote a welcome home concert in honor of Meech that would take place in Ross' hometown of Miami, Florida.
February 13th, the Big Meech Home benefit concert. It's gonna be iconic. Too many names to list, but let me salute some of the legends. Lil Baby, Boss Man D-Lo, 21 Savage, Sexy Red, Ricky Rose. Now, this the first time it's ever been done. Me performing BMF with the icon himself. This shit gonna be special.
Of course, this wouldn't sit right with 50. For one, we already know he looks at anybody who is a friend of his enemy an enemy as well. But mainly because while Meech was incarcerated, 50 started a hit TV series starring Meech's own son playing as Big Meech himself, telling the story of how Meech and his brother Southwest T started a drug empire known as BMF. BMF was known all over and had relationships within the music industry. There had already been an incident where Southwest T took a photo with the son of another one of 50's long-standing enemies that we talked about earlier during the Ja Rule beef, Kenneth Supreme McGriff. Now with Meech doing the same thing, it has sent 50 into one of his non-stop rants that would include Big Meech, Lil Meech, Ross, and anyone else who is standing with them. He even made a remark to Lil Meech after he tried explaining why his dad linked with Ross that the TV series may get canceled because of this. 50 would also start to bring more attention to allegations that were already floating around about Meech cooperating with the police during his time in prison against a close affiliate of BMF, a St. Louis kingpin by the name of Cuffy. Cuffy has come out multiple times himself accusing Meech of setting him up through his assistant and business partner, Tammy Cowens.
Go ahead, Cuff, man. You can introduce yourself and take the flow.
Blue, my nigga, what's up, man?
Yes, sir.
Hey, you know, a lot of people, man, is thinking that this thing is made up or this thing is fake or that I have an axe to grind, you feel me?
Right.
But I'm in here with a 27-year sentence based on Demetrius Flannery, that you all know as Big Meech, and Tammy Cowens, known in the paperwork as CS1.
Right.
Confidential Source 1. So what Big Meech did was call a third-party cooperation. So Tammy Cowens signed up to be a DEA informant to give Demetrius Flannery a time cut, plain and simple.
Meech signed his life rights over to Cowens, which allowed her to tell his story in many ways, in which one would be by partnering with 50 on the BMF series. It seems as if things went sideways with Meech and Cowens, perhaps after his release, because after 50 made a post calling Meech a rat, he made another post alluding that he's working with Cowens on a tell-all docuseries where she will fully expose Big Meech and the snitch allegations. 50 has continued the trolling by now calling Meech Big Screech. Oh yeah, and remember that Welcome Home concert that was scheduled to happen? Well, on the day of the concert, only hours before the start of the event, Ross and Meech would be informed the concert had been canceled. Everyone has assumed by the events leading up to the concert that 50 had his hands all over this, but nothing has yet to surface to prove that, other than 50 once again trolling them both right after. Big Meech would eventually respond to 50 by posting a picture he took with 50 with 50's face covered up by a rat with cheese, as 50 has also faced his own accusations of snitching throughout his career and many feuds he's had. Lil Meech would also get in on the trolling by recently linking up with Ross and Floyd Mayweather, who is also a longtime rival of 50, posting photos and videos of a night out with the two.
Look at this way, the boy be sideways, always getting money, my nigga cry pay. I'm self-made, what? You a sucker, I'm self-made, that's for my broke niggas. Going down, baby. Yeah. Going down.
As it stands right now, the beef continues with back and forth between not only Ross and 50, but now the Meeches and 50, as this now looks like another beef that 50 can add to his collection. As we come to the end of the story, I will mention that even though he is clearly the poster boy for holding grudges, there has been people he was once at odds with that he would squash things with, including Cameron, Jay-Z, Nas, and most notably Fat Joe, who was looped into a beef with 50 through the Ja Rule and Murder Inc. beef, and this beef would get serious in its own right, but they would squash things in a very positive way after the passing of a legend in hip-hop, Chris Lighty, who managed and discovered several legends in the industry, including both 50 and Joe, and they would do it by sharing the stage in a tribute to the legendary figure. As I have mentioned multiple times, 50 would have plenty of feuds and beefs with people in music and the entertainment industry throughout his career, with some being minor, short-lived, and not much to talk about, and some being like the ones we covered in this story that got personal and lasted for a significant amount of time, and hasn't really been officially squashed but died down over time. But knowing 50, those are still up in the air as he would strike at any given moment. But through all the controversy and pettiness that we know, and let's admit, love to some extent, that 50 had become known for, no one can take away the fact that he is one of the most talented and successful celebrities we have ever seen. His name alone reaches generations, as I myself was born in the mid-90s, in which he was already gearing up to take over the industry. Majority of his hit songs and infamous beefs were happening while I was a kid, and it's remarkable that he's still relevant right now today as we speak. I hope you all enjoyed the wild story of a guy who I wouldn't be surprised was the first ever to be caught the troll, because he is definitely the biggest troll ever and is not even close. This was the story of the one, the only, the one you hate to love and love to hate, the legend 50 Cent.
The moment that you show people that you're not willing to fight, they want to fight. You change the feelings. Do you want to feel like you're afraid all the time? Or do you start to become the aggressor? And you start saying, you know what? You ain't got to find me because I'm looking for you. And then it changes everything.